So Kevin Dinesh was the first urban Gujarati film that came out. And Mikhil was 19-year-old back then, 20. He was 20-year-old and he was the chief assistant director. And I have not seen a 20-year-old work as hard as I had seen him. I was 21, he was 20. And I remember Mikhil being the first guy at the set at IVM when it was needed and the last guy to leave the set. So I've like been a witness to his entire journey. So Mikhil, we are talking about Navdeep's journey of from being advertisement to um, up till NH10 is where we reached. But I'll also want to understand your journey because I've seen you as a college student, very passionate about filmmaking. And if I've usually I hate the word passion because I'm like it's like so overhyped that we keep on talking about passion all the time. Most of the times, people who are passionate are just figuring out things on their own. But I've seen you being so dedicated as a college person because all of these are right now at a space in their life where they are going to make that decision for themselves. How were you as a college student and how did you end up being into films through it? If you could just take us through that interesting part.
First of all, apologies for coming late, some technical problem. So yeah, passion, again, what Ritam mentioned is a very overrated word. Am I audible or should I use this mic? Passion again is a very overrated word. I feel it's like a balloon. Uh, the air just goes out. You need to pull in uh, every time to keep going. So, but again, Ahmedabad is a very special place because, of course, my journey started from here, and again, very interesting to share the stage with Navdeep because there's a lot of crew and team members. We keep sharing a lot of my sound designer Subha Sao is the same one who does sound for him, and he's not the same person. What he seems to be a very calm person on the stage. He's a very strict guy on the sets. So I was, of course, a little nervous to share the stage with him. So what Ritam asked me about the journey, of course, I also feel that whenever this question is asked post film, we tend to create stories post the experience, and then we fabricate the story of how probably it was, because when the situation was really there, uh, it's usually far more chaotic and complex than what we
Wasn't
see
as fancy.
yeah. So then we kind of uh, we fantasize the struggle, and then we fabricate a story, and then everybody has their own struggle story. I'm sure you must have shared your. So my struggle story, I would not even call it a struggle, but the good part is that it had a very strong Amravati connection because I come from regional cinema, and me, few of the friends, and Ritam, we started our first film together. It was a film called K. Jayesh. I don't know if you guys have seen that film way before then, way before your generation probably started watching regional films. And then formally starting a production house called Cineman, and then trying to make our first Gujarati film. In 2014, we did a film called Bayar. It was about two friends. I don't know how many of you have seen that film. How many have seen Bayar? Okay. So that's a film which kind of helped us to make some mark. And then it was my directional debut film called Wrong Side Raju. Uh, and then I had to move on to Hindi films. So of course we'll talk about the journey in detail. Over to Ritam.
Okay, Mikhil. So since you mentioned about your journey till Wrong Side Raju, um, something very interesting that happened, which has not happened earlier in Gujarat, is that you could make that move from regional and then you went on to make a lot of Bollywood films, if I have to put it in a way, or Hindi films. What was that jump like? Because Ahmedabad to Mumbai, though it's a 45-minute flight, but that entire journey from being an Ahmedabadi to being a Bombay person and breaking it into a national film industry. And that too at an age of almost 26, 27. What was that journey like? Because I know how directors here are used to working, right?
the kind of work we do here, I know, I tell people that ये सब Bombay में नहीं चलेगा. You can't work this way. यहाँ पे things are more happening on your friendly basis. You call, you get things arranged. How did that happen for you? And then of course Madoc happened, the 3 film contract and everything. If you could just also share that part of your journey.
Uh, I think everything remains the same. I mean, of course, my journey started from regional to Hindi. Navdeep Sir's journey, I think it happened from advertising to films. Yeah. So, of course, that would be a very different journey because you were already kind of in Bombay and working, probably working with big stars, in ads. So, I think it's the same film which I'm still making. I think the dealing part of with probably bigger stars and bigger crew and the entire canvas getting much larger. I think getting to learn to deal with that, it's actually just like working from a local company to an MNC. Imagine you were working in a small IT company and then suddenly you being recruited to work in the headquarters of Google. You just think you're probably still doing the same job. You're still coding, but probably reporting to much bigger bosses, and the calls are much tougher, much harder, and the budgets are higher. So I think that skill of learning to do and wanting to and taking bigger calls and working with bigger crew is what the only difference is. I don't think so the making part of it really changes, is what I feel.
So I actually have a question here. Yeah. So Mikhil, so given that because obviously I haven't worked in regional cinema, since the stakes are so much higher in terms of the monies and the people you're working with, does the is it more relaxed filmmaking when you're doing, say, smaller films?
No, actually, I was quite scared when I was trying to make my first Hindi film because I also feel that because the stakes are little higher and the actors and so I ended up spending a lot more trying time in probably getting more acceptance, and I think that's the reason the entire the entire cream part of it really bothered me. I mean, the making part of it was the same, but because the canvas was so bigger, so it was little stressed up for me. I mean, this is my second feature film which has just completed 3 days back, and I think I was far more relaxed compared to my first film. Yeah.
Okay, Mikhil, we'll come back to your second feature film also in detail. But because you've worked on a thriller film and you keep on working on them as a primary genre, I wanted to understand, how do you get your stories from? A lot of people say that when you are making a thriller film, it's easier to get stories because a lot of it comes from real life incidents and inspirations and news. Do you think that is true, or you think it is even more difficult because real life portrayals need to be gamified and dramified before showcase?
It's a combination of both. I do think personally, I find it easier to come up with thriller ideas. But I said again, thriller is a very wide word. Matlab, you can be a romantic thriller, you can be a spy thriller, you can be an action thriller, you can be a comedy thriller. So it encapsulates many genres. Again, like I was discussing with somebody in the morning, if a thriller is ultimately a structure. आप कितना information withhold कर रहे हैं, कब बता रहे हैं, क्या? So I mean, any story can be told in the form of a thriller. I think say somebody like Asghar Farhadi, I feel his films are thrillers, even though I think I call Asghar Farhadi's Separation, vagera, vagera. Uh, because I mean, in my mind, I call them domestic thrillers because they're very domestic stories. A fight between a husband and wife, but it's the structure which makes it into a thriller.
And something is of course always against time, so
Correct. So it's entirely that कि क्या बता रहे हो क्या नहीं बता रहे एक clock ticking clock है या कुछ है and so ultimately in that sense yeah thrillers are for me personally easier to come up with. What was the second part of the question? Yeah.
Yes, I was saying, when you pick up something from a real world
Right,
situation,
and of
how
course,
do you?
yeah. So and yeah, and so you read the papers, you hear newspaper. I mean, you hear stuff from television, and it does inspire things. I mean, so NH10 was based on this in a very real sense on a famous honor killing incident in Haryana, which was the Manoj and Babli case, I believe, if I remember the names correctly. काफ़ी famous था because it was the police itself which had abandoned them at a dhaba. Then they were picked up, and we used, in fact, almost exactly the same format that picked up at the dhaba by the family of the girl who had, you know. So yeah, so in that sense, but of course you do have to fictionalize it. You do have to sort of imagine fresh characters into it. Uh, so the real life thing is the starting point, is the seed, and then you take it into another space by adding your own elements to it.
So I have two questions for Navdeep sir. So first of all, before I ask those questions, how many of your thriller fans here? And how many are communication students here? And how many are dentistry students here? So most of them are, they're not coming. What stream they belong to? Acha, they all law students. Okay, okay. We are going to come to law because that's something which that I have my personal interest, and my next film also has a very strong law point of view. But before I go, a very interesting question which I also wanted to ask to Navdeep sir is, uh, do you use thriller genre to tell the stories to excite you, or the thriller genre comes organically in your films?
So again, it's a combination of the two. I mean, so good thing about the thriller genre, because it's so like vague in a sense. कि क्या thriller क्या होता है? You can add whatever you want to it, you know. And the thriller part acts as a good hook for both the audience and for the person you're trying to get money from. कि sir ये picture बनानी है या ma'am ये picture बनानी है. Uh, it's that much easier when you have a that kind of little like curiosity wala ho कि अच्छा अब क्या होगा, अब क्या होगा, अब क्या होगा. And both for the audience and for the people involved in terms of actually making the film. Yeah, okay, huh, this sounds interesting, because that interest comes from that natural hook that thrillers seem to have. Yeah, the straight story requires much more work because then you have to craft it to such a extent कि अगर a simple सी love story that without any questions in it requires so much more work. To how do you make it fresh? How do you still make it interesting? How do you still make it? The thriller in that sense is yeah, for me a bit of a cheat, but it's a cheat I love.
Maybe also because you have mastered that genre, and you know how to play around with the elements. Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. Before we move, so I thought because there are a lot of young students, we'll do some games here and make it more fun on a Sunday morning. But before we move to that, what for both of you this question is, what according to you are those three things that make a perfect recipe for a thriller?
So I mean, there's really two, three elements to a thriller. It's suspense, not knowing what exactly is going to happen. I mean, I think Alfred Hitchcock, of course, was the person who really defined the genre, and I think just reading a few interviews by him would be the best for anybody who's interested in the format. He defines it really well. I think there's that famous quotation of his, ke, the difference between suspense and mystery. Okay, mystery is, you know, two people are sitting at a table and there's a bomb under the table and it explodes, and the audience is as surprised. So that surprise is that, you know, acha kisne lagaya ye bomb. And suspense is when you see the person, somebody putting a bomb under a table, and now two people come and sit down on it, and that time bomb is ticking, and the audience knows it's there, but the two people sitting on the table don't know it's there. And that builds up suspense, because now you're anticipating, "Arey, utke jao, 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 jao," or somebody tell them, but you can't do anything. And as an audience, that engages you. You're suddenly in the action. You're involved with what's happening there. So I think it's a question of keeping enough suspense in it, question of keeping enough mystery in it, and mixing those elements. And ultimately, it's about anxiety, creating a little anxiety in the audience, and then giving them relief. Then again, building up anxiety, giving relief. And largely, that's what I think the thriller works on. So you're constantly on the edge of your seat, then you relax. It's that roller coaster ride. कि जब नीचे जा रहे हो वो एंग्जाइटी होती है, फिर वो रुकता है, फिर ऊपर जाते हो, again that anxiety builds up, and then there's that release again. So it's these elements and how you mix them up. Yeah.
So yesterday I was reading about thriller films, and a very interesting fact that I found out was people consume 25% more popcorns while watching thriller films.
That makes sense.
So, Mikhil, your recipe for?
So one of the reasons why I come to speak to colleges is that as long as I can hold this audience, I should be making films. Because at 10 o'clock in the morning and holding the audience 18 to 21 is probably even more difficult than making films, is what I personally believe. So the reason, the same question which I asked to Navdeep sir also is why I personally make thriller films is because I feel in today's time engaging the audience is the toughest task, you know. Ask any filmmaker. We are dealing with audiences who are watching films on 2x 3x on their mobile phones. It's very sad that we have come to a stage where first of all we're watching films on mobile phones. I mean, nothing against it, and that too on fast forwards, you know, randomly recommended by your friends and skipping episodes, and we're dealing with that audience. So again, it has become very difficult to hold audience. So thriller is a genre which probably helps you to engage the audience from the first frame if you get it right. uh, of course, there are very common C's in thrillers which they say that about mystery and suspense, which are very basic elements. But also, thriller helps me to. I usually like to create a hook in the beginning of the film, which also helps to engage the audience till the end. And that hook probably is the larger circle, and then you're dealing with smaller circles and the interior arcs, and then the character arcs and the subplots, and of course and the main hook is the uh, main conflict of the film. So that is something which that's the reason why I explore thrillers. And third, of course, I personally love suspense films. Uh, so that's one more thing that why I try thriller. And now I think it's automatically happened in any story. If you give a biography, it gets converted into a thriller film, because that's what I've structured my mind, and I'm sure that would happen with you also. Any story I would bounce off, and you would think it in a thriller, because after years and years of writing in that genre, uh, you start thinking as a thriller film. Any subject or any topic you throw, you know.
Okay. Navdeep, tell us more about Canada. Uh,
Canada's currently not being made, so, which is about all I can say. Lambi kahani hai, some other time.
Okay. Mikhil, can you tell more about Happy Teachers Day?
I can say as much as I can, but I've heard a lot about Canada. It's an official. Again, it's a film which I've heard from people, and it's a very. I hope it happens, you know, someday. Uh, so, Happy Teachers Day. Of course, I can't reveal because we just shot the film, and it is dealing a subject which you guys as lawyers would be quite interested to know. Uh, Unfortunately, I can't tell what section I'm dealing with on that film. It's a very complex section, uh, but I'll tell you a very interesting story. 2019 December, my last film got released, and January 2020, I have a lot of lawyer friends, you know. So I was sitting with and I was just having a normal discussion, because my first film was Wrong Side Raju was about a hit and run case in which I was dealing with a section called culpable homicide not amounting to murder. That This film also deals with a very interesting section, uh, and the lawyer friends, they suggested me to make a film on it. They said that it's probably one of the most misconstrued and misunderstood section. Uh, and then the entire journey of watching a lot of hearings, because now I'm so happy that all the hearings of High Court and then the junior courts also have come online. So that was a great learning, because how the conversations and how the arguments really happen, now you get to see. So, Teachers Day is, of course, dealing with very two important subjects of education uh, and theater. We have shot the film in Pune, and the most interesting part was, of course, exploring the city of Pune, because I like to explore uh, a new city in every film, because then I also get a chance to explore the city So lot of subjects and lot of, I would say, topics we are trying to explore with Happy Teachers Day. Of course, the name suggests about something with teachers, and why teachers probably are pursued, or are probably they are pursued in a certain way. And of course, we're dealing with some kind of an incident, and we're trying to release the film on 5th of September this year. Uh, but the best part of Happy Teachers Day was it got me a chance to deal with education, theater, and a lot many subjects which I personally wanted to speak directly, indirectly. So it gave me a chance to do that. And but unfortunately, I can't talk more about the film. Otherwise, I could have told you about. We could have discussed about the plot and many more things. Maybe next year, after you guys watch the film, and if you like it, we can discuss much in detail about the film. Yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll move to a part which is something that I thought will be more fun for a Sunday morning to do. So, Mikhil, if you could move there, I wanted to just make it like a light-hearted game sort of thing. So the thing is that most of the directors I've met in my life, filmmakers, they are very serious people, and they have to be a little stricter because they're dealing with 200, 300 people on the set with all kind of tantrums and egos. So I thought, let us get the other side of the directors out. So there are three different things that I've thought about that you need to do. So we will start with the first one, which is called Have You or Have You Not, right? So if you have done it, you can raise your hand. If you have not done it, you can like not raise your hand. There. Let's begin.
These guys are lawyers. They are politically so right, So tell them to be honest.
No, so you both need to like.
Okay,
let-
okay, okay.
Yeah, you are the subjects. They're just going to the audience to this. Okay. So, have you or have you not sneaked out of your own movie in a theater?
I think that's a tricky question because I never watch my films in theaters. I only see in parts. So yes, sneaked out, maybe.
So yeah, I've also sneaked in and sneaked out.
Got fired
Got fired from a film set.
from your job, from your film set?
I have got fired multiple times. I was never a very sincere student.
I've always tried to quit before I get fired. At least.
That's the most Gen Z thing to do. Slept while shooting on the set.
No, I'm very serious and very passionate. See, again, I use the word passion very, very selectively. But one thing I love is making films and be on a set, and I use that opportunity to the fullest. So I can. That's something which keeps me going, and I can never sleep on my sets. So
Uh, I confess I do take power naps, especially if you're shooting nights. Dinner time, I sometimes skip dinner and take a 10-15 minute nap instead.
Okay.
Cute.
Copied a scene from another film that you looked up to.
So as they say, no, that copying is not a problem. It's not from where you take; it's where you take. So I think we all are inspired from something. It could be from a picture or a video or a film. So it would be unfair to say that we don't copy. I think everybody copies. I think it's how you do it is the question. So of course, inspiration, references, and they all happen, but we try to keep the soul at least original, on whatever story we are trying to say. So that's what I personally try to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've copied a scene, but of course, definitely taken ideas, taken thoughts, taken even plots. And like he said, it's not where you get it from; it's where you take it to. So, really,
It's the same these guys do, right? I mean, most of us are lawyers, so of course you guys do refer to a lot of cases when you are fighting for an argument that in particular this case, or in some 98 case, this particular incident happened, and you try to use that case, and I think it's not usually copying, but it's getting inspired of probably approaching a scene or your favorite scene, or how probably it was done in a way, and it's usually a personal inspiration, and then it all depends on where you take it. So I think it's that.
openly criticized a film?
Depends, in a premiere or in a closed room or a close conversation.
In a premiere?
Premieres are tricky because filmmakers and studios. I mean, they call you, they feed you with popcorns, and they give you cold drinks, and they talk so nicely. So how can you criticize their films?
We used to do that, Mikhil. We used to do that.
I know. Now I think people have become little more honest. I mean, uh, but yeah, it is still a very tricky thing for me. I don't know.
And I wouldn't do it on a premiere or on a a
On
screening.
Twitter?
Not even in a public platform. In private, of course. On a premiere, it's in bad taste. Yeah. It's like going for somebody's wedding and then telling them that their husband or wife to be doesn't has X missing quality or Y missing quality. It's a bit late for that. Yeah.
Okay. Fought real bad with an editor.
Yeah, I think I always fight with my editors because as they always say, that you write a film three times. First is when you get your first draft right. Then you rewrite when you're shooting, when you realize that when you're directing your actors, and third is on the edit. And I very genuinely feel that edit is a make it or break it stage. I mean, a very good script or a very good performance can go wrong on an edit. I personally have always fought with my editors. Uh, it's usually for all the right reasons. It's usually for a duration, or probably when you see a scene in a different way, because uh, in general we are dealing with something which is so subjective. A scene can be approached in 100 ways. So if you're not seeing the scene in if you do if you're not if you do if the editor is not seeing this scene the way it's written in the script, or if you have shot, then there are conversations, and then these conversations can turn into debates, and then it can turn into fights also, which I personally have faced. But I don't know about you.
I think it's almost essential to fight with your editor. You don't call it a fight; you call it a passionate discussion. So it's yeah, it's how you phrase it. But yeah, I entirely agree with Mikhil that that's the last time that you can rewrite your story, and it's essential that you try it out a different way, and rather than just saying, "Oh, that will work or that won't work," or let's try it out.
Also, if I feel that uh, when you, especially you write your own stories and direct, it's you stay with your films for so longer. By the time you come to edit stage, it's almost what you stayed with the script for 24 months and even more than that. So I think there is a certain level of possessiveness with the story and the characters, the and the editor doesn't know that what has gone probably while shooting that scenes. I think that it's very important to detach that possessiveness and with the script and your characters, and objectively judge your material, and let your editor do that magic, which I'm trying to learn now in my next films. Let's see how it goes.
So interestingly enough, मेरा opposite होता है mostly where I want to cut stuff, but my editors seem to want to hold on to it. But so yeah, that always varies.
Okay. Have you or have you not shoplifted?
Shoplifted. Okay, no. As I said, that there are inspirations, and then again, it's not from where you take; it's where you take. So I think we all shoplift, uh, but how you do it is the skill.
How many people here have shoplifted? Done shoplifting? How many of you have shoplifted from Mintra? Like got something and never returned? A lot of people here.
So I actually went through a criminal phase of about a year of shoplifting, this, that, and I was 6 years old. So, but but that was my year of in crime. Yeah.
Okay. And have you or have you not gotten a ticket in a college?
No, thankfully not. In fact, I don't know if Karnataka University has engineering. Does it or does it not? I did my engineering, and I fortunately never got a TKT. So
Which is a feat in itself, like almost close to a national film award.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. So I managed not to get it one. I don't know about you, sir.
A ticket is a backlog.
So yeah, so I think in Delhi University we used to call it a remedial. Yeah, I failed Hindi, and I don't think I've ever passed it. So my So that reminds me.
Okay, the next thing I'm going to ask you is I'll tell you a name of a film, and you have to tell me honestly if you had to change one thing in that film, what would that have been? So these might or might not be your own films. So you can like it's a very fun thing. So you can and no one is recording. So you can okay. The first one for you, sir, is Dil Chahta Hai.
I love that film. Yeah. I really wouldn't change much in Dil Chahta Hai.
One thing if you
Huh?
had to change, like it could be an actor, it could be a plot, it could be a song, something you if you had to change.
I don't know. I'll leave that one to Mikhil. Yeah.
I think Dil Chahta Hai is a cult film. How many of you are Dil Chahta Hai fans here? I think almost everyone. Non-Dil Chahta Hai fans, I'm not going to trust because
I
that's
think
a
half of them were not even born when Dil Chahta Hai came out.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
them,
I
it's
think so.
like what Sholay was for us.
I know.
Happened before you were born.
Correct. So I think everything about Dil Chahta Hai was something which we learned was very new at that time. What I love about Dil Chahta Hai is the fact that it came in 2001. I think I don't know before that we were dealing with films which had a hero and a heroine and a villain. So the idea of making a film based out of Goa dealing with a friendship that to about three guys was itself so new as a subject. So I think everything about that film was so fresh. One thing if I had to change, of course I'm no one to comment on it. I think the theme about why friendships are so important probably could have been dealt in a more profound way, but I'm just saying because you asked me.
Yeah,
So
that's it. It's a fun thing. Yes.
yeah, so yeah, I think trying to probably find friendship in a more philosophical and deeper way is what I felt uh, was better in Zindagi Na Mile Dobara also, which probably came from Excel and the same production house. But yeah, that is something which I would love to revisit if one thing we had to change.
And yeah, and on second thoughts, it's been a while since I've seen it. जो अक्षय खन्ना and डिम्पल कपाड़िया का जो था ना, I think she her track था. I think they killed her off in the end. Like they killed her, right? She dies. She dies in the end.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I would have, I would have, yeah, I would have kept her alive.
Okay. Doom 3.
I'm so sorry, I've not seen Doom 3. Uh,
I would change Doom 3.
Okay. Drishyam.
So, okay, I have a lot of problems with the second part of Drishyam 2, which of course I can't discuss now here. Maybe in Drishyam part 1.
Yeah, part 1, part 2, anyone.
Okay. So, part 1 was of course a cult. All the versions, you know. The one which, the Hindi version also. Uh, I think the shock value of the suspense in part 1 when you get to know what Ajay Devgan's character did in the part 1, I think that smartness I was kind of missing in the part 2. What I love about part 2 is that there are very few sequels who continue from the end of part 1s, you know. Usually thrillers and sequels are different stories. So what I love about Drishyam series is it starts from where it was paused of what Ajay Devgan's character did with the body. But I think the only thing which I hope is it was little more technical and little more convincing in the sequel is what I personally felt, though I loved it. And of course, because you're asking me. So yeah.
Okay. And the last film is Special 26. Special 26.
मैंने actually, I must confess, मैंने special 26 देखी नहीं है, so that's.
Okay.
I think Special 26 was again that is one film which I don't think it's one of those films which was structured very well and I don't think so anything we could change, especially the climax, you know, which was mind blowing. And of course, Special 26 was set in a time which was very convincing when they could do this and get pass off with the raids and the way they were functioning. Of course, Special 26 or a kind of story which was set now in 2023, it would be very difficult. In fact, one thing I wanted to confess about thrillers is, and again, you guys are lawyers, I want to tell that it's far, far more easier to set films which are 20 years back because we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have CCTV cameras, we didn't have WhatsApp records. So proving a plot or probably getting away was far more easier 20 years back now than in 2023 because now it's almost impossible to lose your digital footprints, be it CCTV camera or anything, you know. So it has in fact become even more trickier and difficult to write thrillers in 2023 than compared to stories which are set before
I
2000.
never thought it that way. Like,
No, no, it's a big issue. We spend on especially on when we doing shows and things like that, where you have a writing team, a lot of time discussing कि अच्छा ये CCTV कैमरा क्यों काम नहीं कर रहा था, you know, इस point पे या उसने मोबाइल घर छोड़ के गया इसके ताकि he can't be traced. So it becomes a lot of this mechanical trying to get around these issues of constant surveillance that we are under now, you know, in a sense.
Also, I feel that uh, the laws again are so complex that there was a time when WhatsApp records were permissible. You being lawyers, you would know. And then now they are not permissible. So the laws keep on changing. But the fact that how do you convince the audience that a particular character was at a location and the mobile tower couldn't track his coordinates? How do you plot your jammers? How do you get away with what he has sent? Because these days, we, the surveillance is there 360 degrees. There are CCTV cameras everywhere. So I think that has become one of the very challenging things in writing thrillers because essentially in thrillers you have a character and he's actually trying to get away with things which is mostly against time. That's usually a broader plot for every thriller film, and that has been that has become very trickier, especially in web shows where you're dealing with a lot of multiple episodes and lot of technical stuff. So yeah, I mean, and that's the reason we take help. I have personally a lot of lawyer friends, and uh, most of them are criminal lawyers, and they usually help with what's admissible, what are the arguments, what are the kind of cases which come. I personally friends from Bombay High Court working with me on my next story also, who have been huge contributors, not just in plot points but even creatively. So
wow.
I in fact try to keep more lawyer friends than film fraternity friends, you know. So because they tend to help me to contribute in my stories way more than, you know, I can imagine.
But going on that lawyer point, I just wanted to say, since so many of you are law students here, uh, the domain knowledge that you have in that sense, I really would encourage if some of you are interested in writing or filmmaking to venture out there. Like, you know, somebody like John Grisham, I mean, he revolutionized the sort of law thing, and he was a lawyer. He started with that. And because he had that knowledge of that sort of courtroom dramas and how to, you know, work with all those elements. So I really, really would encourage people out there to sort of make
So
that
since
leap.
majority of them are LLB students here, how many of you are interested in screenwriting or would want to pursue probably someday?
How many of you want to get paid for writing a story? Is what he's asking. किसको
No,
पैसा कमाना है?
one of the takeaways from this
चलो.
session is that
थोड़ा हाथ ऊपर करो ज़्यादा लंबा हो. So we don't
one of the
see lot
takeaways from this session is that because there's a lot of content being made on legal thrillers, uh, there is always a need of lawyers in writers room. Writers room basically is a room which is led for a web series. There is usually a showrunner and there are 3-4 writers, and they always need lawyers and a very strong legal point of view. And if you have a creative inclination, that would be a best combination. So that's something you guys should think of it. I think having a legal point of view in a writer's room is something which could be a very interesting prospect in future. I mean, still needed. So that's something which you guys should think about it seriously at this stage.
Okay, we are going to open up for question answer for the audiences. But before that, just 2 minutes. I want to just have a kind of rapid fire with you guys. So the thing is, you need to answer in 10 seconds or less, whatever I ask. Works, guys? Let's have a rapid fire. And when we open up for question answer, you can also continue with the rapid fire questions. Okay. So 3 favorite recent Bollywood directors.
Harshvardhan Kulkarni, I loved Badai Do. That's one of my favorite films this year. I loved Vasan Bala's Monica My Darling. And I don't know how many of you have seen Monica My Darling. How many have seen Monica My Darling? Okay. Just wanted to keep a check of. And third is Vikramaditya Motwane. I love the way he directs and his craft. Yeah.
Sir, for you.
I would be a ditto on Vasan Bala. I'd add Kanu Behel, who did Tithi, and his new film Agra is good, still in the works. My third director would be I would say somebody like Dibakar Banerjee, whose films I really like. Yeah.
Okay. One film you can watch numerous times.
Gangs of Wasipur, I think, because of the dialogues.
There is this Kannada film called Tithi, which I've watched multiple times. It's a wonderful film. In case you, it's little not that well known outside of those circles, but watch it if you guys can. Tithi, wonderful film.
If not a filmmaker, you would be.
I think I try to cook a lot, so I would be a struggling cook. I'm still a struggling filmmaker, but that depends on how does my next film fares. But I think I would try to be a struggling cook, is what I feel. I love cooking, so.
My childhood dream was to be an archaeologist. I love digging stuff, man.
Now you're digging stories. Cinematographer or editor, whom you trust more?
It's a tricky one. On the sets, you know that you can't do anything. You can't even move an inch without your DOP. And I'll tell you what, if any of you wants to be a director, if you're not going along well with your DOP, the entire set gets to know, and they kind of try to take an advantage of that. So I think a director and DOP is like an husband-wife. I mean, you can see that if there is a problem, even they're not talking or they're talking, you can see there's some problem happening. So I think on sets, DOP, post shoot, I think editor. So I think both are, you know.
That is very convenient.
Yeah.
DOPs are my best friends. Yeah, it is absolutely absolutely pillar of support that you need on a set, and you have to get along and just work with each other.
Okay. Sriram Raghavan or Dibakar Banerjee?
I think Shyam Raghavan. Yeah.
I would also go with Sriram, although Dibakar was in my top 3.
In fact, Shyam sir's first film, Ek Hasina Thi, is probably my all-time favorite film. I don't know how many of you have seen Ek Hasina Thi, you know. One of those cult thriller films. Any Ek Hasina Thi fans? Okay, let me start with last one. Any Andhadhun fans? Almost all of them. Any Badlapur fans? Badlapur? Okay. And what was the third Shyam sir?
Johnny Gadda.
Any Johnny Gadda fans? Even lesser. Any no Ek Hasina Thi fans? कम लोगों ने देखी, right?
Okay. Send a tweet to Anurag Kashyap.
I have done a lot of drunk messages to him, so a big fan of Anurag Kashyap. He co-produced my first regional film, and unfortunately, I have not been in touch with him. But whenever I don't know, I don't tweet. I'm not that courageous. But whenever I'm on the edit stage, there is one time where I have always drunk messaged him, and he has never replied. So I hope he replies in this film. I'm editing my next film, so I hope that happens.
He's a friend, so I won't say anything here. Yeah.
Okay. Send a tweet to Anushka Sharma.
Hi.
I have not worked with Anushka Sharma, so I don't have a motivation to say hi to her on Twitter.
Okay. So then send a tweet to Narendra Modi.
I might do. I can do a tweet to Narendra Modi. About what?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you have to send a tweet,
I say if I
that
have to
would be?
tweet something on Narendra Modi, I'll keep it simple, no? Maybe generic, you know, about independence or about something about the country, you know.
Happy birthday.
Send a tweet to FTII chairman.
I actually want to go back to film school again because I didn't get a chance to go to a film school, and a lot of my crew and team members, they all are from film institutes, and they make me look very inferior. That you know, हमने film school के अंदर ये किया था, हम रम पीते थे, हमने French cinema देखा, and which so someday of course I would want to go to a film school. So I would tweet to FTI that please take me without testing me, because I think I would miserably fail in a test. You know, I've always been bad with exams. So
Okay.
I would tweet something to the effect of a lot of your students need an attitude readjustment. I find a lot of FTI students come out fairly arrogant, which is not a great quality for to start with.
If sir could elaborate on that, you know.
But yeah, you know what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I mean. A lot of FTI students who work as assistants, especially in the early part of their career, find a lot of things below their dignity or below their station. Ke, nahi, hum to already, you know. But yeah.
Okay. And the last one, send a tweet to Kangna Ranaut.
I think happy birthday. That's safer.
Okay. We'll just
So before we close, I wanted to ask two questions. I mean, I prepared for Navdeep sir. So, of course, his next web series, something which is, it's a very industry thing that we've been looking forward to. So, anything you can talk at this stage about your next web series?
Not really. You know, there are all those legal issues that, especially with web series and stuff, because there's a million documents you've signed about secrecy and NDAs and things like that. Yeah, in fact, that's the part that a lot of these lawyer people will be interested with. Yeah, there's a lot of law stuff, contracts and stuff. So yeah, contractual obligations, I can't really
Yeah,
say
in fact,
much.
legal contracts in films is something which you guys should look forward to. That has become a very important because of the OTT platforms. My second question to Navdeep sir is, of course, we big fan of Manorama. Uh, there has been a certain level of rusticness and rawness in that film, which we don't see now in these days. Was it intentional or was it happened naturally because that were the circumstances while you were shooting the film?
It was, I mean, I did want that rustic feel. It was supposed to be set in this small town, wanted that sort of small town, sleepy, dusty vibe. It, of course, also worked with our budget. So, but yeah, it was intentional largely.
How many days of shoot, Manorama?
50 something,
And
52
shot in
or
which
50.
town?
Mandava and Aspas, Shikavati district.
Yeah, but that's a flavor which, I mean, that's one of my favorite films, and I think we should give a round of applause for him for making Manorama. That one of those films which inspired us to approach how to make indie films or parallel cinema, you know.
Okay. Open for questions. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. Do we have a mic? Do we have a question? People here. You can ask them anything about their personal lives also. Like they told me backstage, we open to any kind of question. So yes. Uh, can we have the mic?
Hi, good morning. Most of the students here are also from the design background. They could not speak up in the beginning. So how could designers be part of films if you could elaborate on that as well?
There's multiple ways. I mean, there's a lot of design elements which come in, especially in the, I mean, at various processes. I'm from, okay, let's divide filmmaking into three processes. There's the sort of prep, there's the actual shooting, and then there's the post part. So in the prep part, there is some degree of design that goes into, it depends again, design is a very wide this thing, but anything from like production design, which is the constructing of sets or designing of sets, the designing of the look of the story, uh, costume design. Again, I'm not very aware of what all elements of design you guys study here. Uh, but yeah, so a lot of that goes in there. In the post part, of course, there's everything from title designs, which is where graphic designers come in, or marketing design, the way your posters are created. So there's elements of stuff right through the process, and uh, yeah, more and more you see people getting involved.
How many design students here? Okay. So of course, I mean, production design is something which is getting more and more deeper, and it's more. I mean, production design, especially films which are on larger canvas, has very big teams, and production design. I think as a term, it has come from West, where production designer usually they sit with producers, and they are usually head of designs. Uh, in our industry, in Hindi film industry, production design is only limited to set designs. Otherwise, production designers are the one who decide the entire design of the film, be it costumes or be it the set designs or be it the graphic or everything under. But it's a very important aspect in today's the kind of films which we are making. And if one wants to pursue, I think the only way is to come to a film set, you know. That's probably the best way to learn anything and everything.
Okay, any other question?
But I'll just add, there's a huge scope for production designers. There's a huge shortage of production designers in the industry. The good ones are constantly working. Even the bad ones are constantly working. So if you guys are interested, seriously, there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, to replace the bad ones, in fact, you know, because it's something which can help. There's a lot of money, but there's serious dearth of very good production designers, because I think it's a very extensive job also. It's very technical. It's something which requires a very good insight of design, understanding of cinema. Uh, of course, an architecture background helps. So too many elements and parameters, but if you get it right, production design is something which you guys should, if the ones who are pursuing design, yeah.
Okay, any other question that we have? We have someone, we'll just take this as the last question.
Hello, good morning. Sir, I wanted to ask you that recently I have seen that horror films and thriller films have become more and more psychological, like they play with your psyche. For example, you have seen Seven, right? From David Fincher. So I have seen some of my friends being scared to death while watching that film. And then again, there's this film Hereditary by Ari Aster, and I've seen people go like, it was okay, it was okay, or even might they have also concluded like it might be in her head or something, she's crazy like that. So I wanted to ask you, where do you draw a line between the two? How do you distinct from the two these days? You know, to differentiate like this is horror and this is thriller.
Um, it's a very fine line, yeah. Einstein, for instance, was designed in a sense like a horror film. Yeah, it was meant to evoke a particular response, which is in a sense horror, which is horror at the events you're foreseeing, which you're seeing, and horror at the thought of what might come. So it's yeah, horror is in a sense terror, but that could be supernatural, it could be real, it could be, it could be. So it's a very fine line. It's really a question of how much you want to ratchet up the tension. I feel if the tension or the anxiety is ratcheted up to a higher thing, it starts going into the horror space, while a slightly milder version would be a thriller. But that's just my understanding. Huh?
I think he has fairly answered the question, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, both the gentlemen, for your time on a Sunday morning. I think you provided so much of value about the things that you already excel in. So I think there's too much of takeaway for a lot of us to ponder entire day. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
hope it does. And I hope from both design and law students, I hope we get to see more lawyers in films and more design students. More lawyers, because our films are getting more and more technical. So not just from legal point of view, but more lawyers in screenwriting also, because the kind of stories we are dealing. So best of luck, and to all the students here who came to attend, and thank you.